welcome to the African Utility Week studio. I'm Babalwa Pungane, editorial assistant of ESI Africa magazine. Joining me in studio this morning is Alf Hartzenburg, who is the National Project Manager for the Industrial Energy Project from NCPC SA. Welcome, Alf, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
It's quite a mouthful. Alf, I want us to talk about energy efficiency. And I understand that the project, the program, Industrial Energy Efficiency, was established over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So since the inception, have you noticed any significant behavioral change among the intensive energy users?
Significantly, yes. I think the NCPC has been around for more than a decade. The project was launched in 2010. And in the early days of the project, we encountered an industrial sector that was suspicious, that didn't trust, and that they understood the why they had to do something, because they saw the tariffs increase and they experienced the outages, but they didn't understand the what and the how. Today, 7 years on, we are finding that industry is a lot more understanding of why they need to do it, and they've embraced the what and the how. And if I could share with you some specific cases that outline how they're embracing that. Those industries and companies that have implemented energy management systems, some of them are seeking to fine-tune it to continue driving continual improvement. Others are using that as a platform to opt for certification, ISO 50001 certification, and that is necessary for international trade and a great support of those exporting products out of South Africa. To companies that have implemented energy systems optimization, a lot of them are now seeking to expand the breadth and the depth of capacitation in their plants, or if they are national groups across all their plants in South Africa, to sustain the gains that they have made. There are also maturing companies that have been with us since 2010, and they've done everything and they're starting to see diminishing returns. Those companies are now looking at other ways of improving their energy performance. They're looking at alternative sources of fuel, like waste heat recovery, cogeneration, polygeneration. They're also looking at renewable energy options. And we are finding that the renewable energy options that are favored in the South African industrial landscape are essentially solar PV, biomass, and biogas. So in closing, and in closing my response, I think it's important to mention the fact that these companies, 7 years on, appreciate the value of the human factor, the value of behavior change, the importance of and the potential in driving huge savings by simply dealing with the human factor in the equation. And that's very encouraging, because we have learned as a project that the human factor is ultimately what makes or breaks your energy system.
Well, it's good to hear that you have actually seen a change, which is something that is encouraging for such an initiative, I would say. I understand that yesterday you moderated a session on embedded power generation. Can you just quickly share with me what transpired there?
Yes, it was an incredible session. I've moderated many sessions in my life, and this must rank as one of the top two. Some words that I've jotted down that probably defined the session very well. It was fascinating. It was candid, it was informative, it was well balanced, and it was profoundly relevant to what's happening in South Africa today. There were a well-composed panel that shared their experiences, their challenges, their objectives, and their knowledge in the space of embedded generation, which made for quite compelling listening. We also had a very good audience turnout, considering the time of the day. And the session extended well beyond the scheduled end time of 4:30, and nobody moved. I had to stop the questions because one of the panelists had to catch a flight home. So in terms of what happened during the panel session presentations, we had the first speaker set the stage, and she was from a European-based agency that had done a study on Africa and looking at opportunities for embedded generation, and they defined a short list of countries that are best suited for embedded generation. That was followed by a case study on mines and embedded generation in mines, and what the future mine would look like. And that's quite amazing, because mines are starting to reach parity in terms of renewable energy costs and grid electricity tariff. The third speaker spoke about the challenges in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality that I imagine is facing all municipalities in South Africa today. They have seen a drop of 15% in their annual revenue from electricity sales. And he blamed that, wrongly I must add, he blamed that on renewable energy. I believe it's more than just that. It's been contributed by energy performance or energy efficiency programs like ours. It's been brought about in a way, in a measure, through the software economy we're experiencing in South Africa today. But what was important was an understanding that they couldn't sit back and do nothing. And the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality had developed wonderful and innovative ways of looking at the tariff structures that serves to offset that 50% loss in revenue. The last speaker of the day spoke about and represented NERSA, and he spoke about the challenge on a national level. The challenge that faces Eskom with a grid defection of its top tier client base that traditionally subsidized the lower client base, with the result that they cannot simply increase tariffs now, and that they have a diminishing pool or diminishing customer base to recover those large fixed cost and base load that they have. So they have a big problem in the sense that they need to re-look at how they structure tariffs or how they structure the industry. Unfortunately, with an Eskom as a monopolistic generating power as we have in South Africa, we cannot look at other models in Europe and North America. We have to find a South African solution for them. So in a nutshell, Babawa, the panel identified the growth of embedded generation in South Africa and the fact that we can't stop it and the fact that it will increase and accelerate. The panel also identified that domestic users are already benefiting from renewable energy and that commercial and industrial sectors are at the tipping point. So NERSA, Eskom and the government needs to find that solution very quickly before they find that significant revenue sales impacting on their business models.
What is the current status of South Africa's carbon tax bill, and how does this compare with similar international legislation?
Okay. This bill has been deferred many times. We were expecting this a few years ago, but it's been deferred every year, and we were sitting with bated breath at the last budget speech expecting to see something. We're calling it the recycle bill because a lot of the revenues gained through the carbon tax will be recycled in the form of incentives to industry and those that are doing and improving their energy performance. Unfortunately, the bill in its present state already has a lot of concessions in it through thresholds. Taking into account that South Africa over the last 7 years have missed out on the global growth trajectories, 2 global growth trajectories, our economy is in many sectors are in a distressed state, and large and energy-intensive users have made submissions to both National Treasury and government about the likely damage this carbon tax could make and wreak on their businesses. So I don't think that we are going to see the carbon tax published in its current form. We may see it continually being set back, in my view, or we may see a significant or quite a drastic revision of the bill that seeks to increase some of the thresholds even more and make greater concessions. And as a result of that, dilute the impact and the intended impact and outcomes. Many countries have stepped away from the bill, I think we're all aware of what happened in Australia. On the eve of signing the carbon tax, the bill into law, the government stepped back from that. Many European companies won't go near a carbon tax bill. So I think at this stage in our country's history, at this stage with the challenges we face in industry, at this stage of an economy that's fighting to remain globally competitive, in its current form it may not be the best thing for the country. And large, intensive energy users in South Africa clearly pointed out the losses in revenue and also ultimately the losses in jobs that can result from imposing that bill now. So there is a challenge, and I would hope that government understands that. And I think by what has happened, it indicates that government realizes that we need to think very carefully before we act.
On a different note, I understand that the center also tackles water conservation. So I just want to know, how does this differ from energy efficiency?
As a context to the water, energy or the IEE project imparted wonderful structure and methodologies and learning to the NCPC. So in a big way, the IEE project bolstered the framework and structure within the NCPC, which positions the NCPC very well to take up this industrial water energy efficiency project. And the industrial water energy efficiency project is mirrored on the IEE project. If you look at water consumption in South Africa today, agriculture accounts for 57% of national water use. If you take industry, the industrial and commercial sectors, and you look at both direct and indirect water consumption, that accounts for about 28% of national water use. And that is our target market. Through our IWEP project, that is what we're targeting. That's what we're seeking to improve. And like you can implement an energy management system, you can almost identically implement a water management system by defining the scope and boundaries of the system, by developing a company water policy and having it signed by top management, by constituting a water team and defining the roles and the responsibilities, by conducting a water review and looking at all the significant water users in the plant, doing a water balance, identifying through a regression analysis what the base load is, what drives water consumption in the business for each of those users, what are the water performance indicators that derive. We can develop action plans from that to drive down water use or improve water consumption performance. We can then review those action plans and check whether we're achieving the intended outcomes, and then conduct annually or 6-monthly senior management reviews to check how the water performance is improving. And an important feature in all of that is training, awareness training and competency training for all those operators and technical staff associated with processes in the plant that consume a lot of water. And like in energy systems optimization, we can also model all the water users, and we can measure pressure, we can measure flow, we can measure temperature. We can, and from that, we can measure leaks and wastage. And from that, we can optimize water systems in the plant. So I think with hindsight, we're probably very well suited to do a IWEP, or water efficiency project, and hopefully start reducing and improving the performance in that industrial and commercial sectors that see that 28% decrease over time.
Wow, thank you for your time, Alf. You've been great, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for watching. I am Babalwa Pungane, reporting from the African Utility Week studio.